Cityline Real now. We want to talk about all the events happening in the world today. It can seem very depressing. I want to know, is the news making you sad? When you're connected, you're seeing headline after headline after headline. It seems to be all bad. Protests happening in Canada, in the United States. We've had women's marches. We've had protests at JFK Airport for the travel ban. And it just seems to be a lot. This is what we're hearing from our viewers, and this is what I'm feeling on a personal level. Imagine our kids. How do we talk to them about what's going on? Sasha Emmons is here, editor-in-chief from today's Parent Magazine. Uzma Jalaluddin is here. So you are a Toronto Star columnist, you are a mother, you are a school teacher, and so we want to talk about how we might broach this issue with our kids, because they're coming home with it. They're pretty smart. Kids are talking on the playground, so it's not like you can ignore it.
It's totally pervasive at this point, so you really do need to get out in front of it. You want to make sure you have the conversation too. You don't want things like this to be taboo. This is something that's really important. If you're part of a targeted group, you for sure are going to need to talk to your kids about how to deal with their feelings, how to deal with the world. Even if they're not in a group that's being targeted, you want to raise them to be critical thinkers and to be allies and to have compassion. So at a certain point when they go to school, you're not always in control of the message. They're getting messages from kids at school, from the media, and so it really involves talking early and talking often.
So this is pretty much what you did, Uzma, with the travel ban. You spoke with your kids about it. And how did you do that? How did you handle it?
Well, I have two sons, age 9 and 12, and they're still young enough that they don't exactly have their own cell phones yet.
Yeah.
Though of course they have their tablets; those never go away. But the cell phones aren't there, so they aren't on social media. They aren't on Instagram or Snapchat or any of those things. So I'm lucky. I can sort of control the message as it is. Mm-hmm. They watch everything on news. They read the newspaper, of course, and they're aware of things. But it's for me, I try to make sure that I talk to them before something happens, after something happens. And I think with kids, sometimes you just need to actually ask the question before they start asking the question. I try to be really honest about my answers. And in my house, I think kids tend to see the world as really black and white. Mm-hmm. And what I try to do is layer my answers with a lot of nuance and a lot of context. So I'll get into the history of certain events and the conversations about, like Sasha mentioned, critical thinking is really important. I'm a teacher as well as being a columnist with the Toronto Star, and that's something I try to teach my students as well. Like, let's take a step back and why is this happening?
That's
what is
interesting.
our place in it? Yeah.
Because then you're raising analytical thinkers.
Trying.
Yeah, I think that's an important part of it. It's not a black and white situation.
It isn't.
What about parents who think, I don't want to freak them out. I don't want to freak them out with this information. It's tough to handle as a grown-up. So where is the boundary in terms of how much you tell them, Sasha?
Well, I think there's a difference between talking about discrimination, which is something that is a daily reality for everyone, and so you do really need to talk about it, versus scary, violent events in the news. Those are things where you really have to make sure that you're being age appropriate. Younger kids can't really handle the truth. So, while you may acknowledge that some of those things have happened, you will need to give the message that it's far away from them, it's unlikely to happen to them. Until about age 7, they kind of call age 7 the age of reason, and until then, it's just kind of too much information to think that something scary and bad could happen to them. So you need to shelter them from that a little bit. But as far as having discussions about discrimination, books are a really great way to start that conversation when your kids are little. There are so many good books out there. We have a great list on Today's Parent, but those can really start the conversation because it's a tough one and you feel like you're really stumbling through it. You may stumble, that's okay, you have to keep trying, but books can really help.
That's really good advice. You also say, and one of your tips is watch what they're watching, watch what they're taking in. And I'm going to flip this now for the adults out there. We need to watch what we're taking in. So Cityline wrote an article. There's an article at Cityline, which we're putting on our website, cityline.ca, because you should read it. The title is Help When the News is Crushing You, But You Can't Look Away. And I think that's what's happening with so many of us. One of the points they say is to recognize that the news can affect your mood. So it can affect your mood. It actually can make you sad. It actually can affect your mental health. You are taking in the news not just as a teacher, but as a mom. Do you find that it's easy to disconnect?
I think in this day and age, especially with everything that's going on in the world, it's hard in general for anyone to disconnect. The conversations are happening all the time at work, at home. I went to a party the other day and I had to actually tell, actually it's my son's birthday party at my house. It's a happy occasion, he's turning 12, God help me. So close. And my mom is there, my dad is there, big birthday cake, and we start talking about Trump, and I'm like, stop.
Yeah.
We can't. We need to just, let's take a break. Let's celebrate this happy occasion. And kids see that. So, I mean, we were talking about fear earlier, and, you know, we know this terrible, tragic event happened in Canada just a couple weeks ago, the Quebec mosque shooting, which was really difficult for me, of course, as a visible Muslim woman, and my children are also Muslim. And so, but that Friday, right after the mosque shooting, we actually attended Friday prayers. We don't usually, but we did. And my son asked, you know, I asked my son, he's 9 years old, are you afraid? And he said, yes, I am. And I said, yeah, I'm afraid too. And he said, then why are we here? And I just said, well, sometimes you can't let fear rule your decisions. You have to, you know, step up and show your support for the mosque. So they kind of saw the 2 police cruisers in front of the mosque, and they were like, oh, okay, this is interesting. But then we went about our day. So I think sometimes that fear, just talking about it, also expressing your fear, I think it helps with kids as well as other people. But sometimes you just have to stop.
I love that. Okay, once again, so nuanced. So definitely go to cityline.ca for this article. And you know what? Tweet us with the hashtag CitylineReal how you are handling being bombarded by negative messages in the media. We want to see how you're handling it as well, because I think we can learn a lot from each other.